In the last video, we decided on what standards we were going to choose. So let's go ahead and review the lesson plan template and see what we filled in, and let's put those standards in there. So I've already put my name. I put the date as spring 25. We talked about that. This time I chose to leave the title blank because maybe, like an essay, I don't know what my title is until the end. Education of the 70s is my topic. Expected time 50 minutes, although this can change based on my planning activity. Teaching and Training 1 is the class. 9th through 12th is the grades. Remember, I can't fill out my lesson summary because I haven't completed my lesson yet. You can't summarize something that's not done. And then my materials needed, same thing. I haven't planned my lesson procedures. I don't know what materials I will need. So standards addressed, I went ahead and cut and pasted these right into my document, right off of the standards. I did make sure I included that three number numerical thing. I don't know how to phrase that. And then teaching and training, I put a TT for teaching and training, and then an ES for employability standards. I wanted to indicate that I pulled standards from two separate places. Now, in looking at this document, you would assume that objectives would be next, but actually, I would like to build my assessment next. Personally, I always go standards, assessment, then objectives. That helps me keep in line and make sure that I'm assessing what I need to assess, and I really put that assessment high on the priority list. So before we can design an assessment, let's talk about what assessment is. Assessment is the how. This is the how of the lesson plan. How will the teacher evaluate learning? How will students show their understanding? How will you know you did your job? Again, assessment is how a teacher evaluates the learning that happened within a lesson, within a unit. So what will you choose? There's a lot more information about assessment. We're not going to go into it right now. We'll go into it on lesson plan 2 a little bit more, and in teaching 2 a little bit more. But you could do a quick test or quiz. You could do a worksheet or short answer prompt, a project or other learning activity, or a graded discussion or chat. These are all options that you could use for an assessment for this particular lesson. I am going to say, unless you feel super confident, getting your peers to talk can be quite difficult, so it might not be good to do a graded discussion or a chat this go around, but it's something to keep in the back of your head. Also, before choosing an activity, let's talk about Bloom's taxonomy of teaching, learning, and assessment. This is that assessment piece. So learning, we think of lower order thinking skills all the way to higher order thinking skills. It moves up there. Lower order is things like defining, showing knowledge. Then you have recalling, restating, summarizing, translating. Then you get into the application. This is the doing. Kind of anytime you have an action, it at least is going to be application in the sense of, if I'm measuring writing, the action of writing is application of that process. So for example, we're going to use the example of serving a tennis ball. The act of serving a tennis ball is application. Serving that ball would be the application of the skill. Then we get into the big thinkers, the deeper thinkers, these three. This is where teachers like to try and get students and keep students. This is deep learning, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. These are our higher order thinking skills. This is going to have them create, compose, argue, evaluate, judge, revise, defend, categorize, calculate, outline, inferring things. It's all a part, debating, relating and connecting to yourself, the world, other texts. These are all forms of higher order thinking, and this is definitely where you want to land when building your assessments. These verbs are verbs you can use in your assessment to show what students are doing and creating and producing. So let's go ahead and jump back over to our assessment section, and let's build an assessment from scratch.
First, you want to reevaluate your standards and see what they require students to do or perform. I'm highlighting the parts of the standard that are performance indicators. Then, take some time to process and just literally write what students need to do. I do this on a separate piece of paper, but for demonstration I'm just writing them in the assessment section. 1. Literally create a picture that shows the educational environment of the 1970s. 2. Compare and contrast past to present of educational policies. 3. Know the educational policies/define and give a statement about how education has changed since the 1970s. Now how can I be creative and turn this assignment into something fun or fun adjacent? I love music, so an album cover and song list.